So we're now at this module called Other Eligible Activities. I think you can tell by the name that it's a seldom used category of activities, but nonetheless they are eligible under CDBG. And there may be instances where using CDBG dollars for one of these eligible activities will become important to you. And so we're going to go through them pretty quickly, but I think they're important nonetheless. So there are other eligible activity options, including interim assistance, which we'll dig into, relocation, I'm sure you guys know about, loss of rental income. We're going to talk about that. There's some confusion around that one. Technical assistance we covered under economic development activities as a public service. There's also this other category of technical assistance that we'll go through. And then you have these three here at the bottom: assistance to institutions of higher learning, payment of non-federal share, urban renewal. Those are pretty much never used under CDBG, so we don't have slides to speak to them. But they are listed there in the regulations, but we're not going to cover them during this module. Okay? So, eligible interim assistance. So, interim assistance is meant to be a short-term activity. Okay? Short-term activity, typically looking at a flood, an earthquake, something that happens that you couldn't prepare for, okay? And that it's a way to use CDBG dollars to address the immediate needs around whatever that event is, okay? So you can pay for it under two circumstances, okay? Under two circumstances you can use it for interim assistance. One, there's immediate action is necessary until something is permanent done. So let's say an earthquake happens, a bridge structure cracks, okay? And you need to use CDBG dollars to quickly fix that bridge structure until you can completely replace whatever that structure gap is or that crack is, okay? So something immediate is necessary until something is permanent is done. And so it's a temporary solution to something. It's not the permanent solution, it's a temporary solution, okay? Or if there's some emergency conditions that threaten health and public safety, okay? So the same scenario of a bridge, something falls on a bridge, traffic is going underneath, you need to address that bridge issue, that structural issue, because it's a condition that threatens public health and safety, okay? So those are the two conditions in which you can use interim assistance, okay? The national objective associated with that is low mod area benefit. Again, you're benefiting an area in most cases. You could do slum and blight. It could be an urgent need. You have to meet the urgent need criteria. This would probably be one that would apply in this case. Activity must alleviate existing threatening conditions, must address recent conditions. It can't be something that happened 24 months ago that you're now figuring out you want to address. Has to be something that's recent. And the recipient must be unable to finance the activity and no other funds available. So you have to prove that if it's going to document it as an urgent need. Otherwise, it's a temporary solution to before a more permanent solution can be financed or developed. Okay. Has anybody funded this activity before? What did you use to fund it with?
And I'm actually working on it now.
Okay.
One of the activities is we have an area in Neary that has deplorable alleys.
Okay.
It is mandated by the city that all alleys are paved. So we have infestation, dumping grounds, name it's been there. So
you probably qualified it under the threatened health and safety. Yeah. And so here's the thing about interim assistance. I think some communities are, obviously in the purview of getting hit by hurricanes. Some are more prone toward tornadoes and other things. My recommendation to you is this: if you feel like this may be something that you would need to access because of those threatening conditions, make sure that it's an activity in your action plan. Okay? It can be funded with $1,000. Remember we talked about the amendment process? And if you have this as an activity in your action plan, you're just moving money to it. That doesn't constitute a substantial amendment. But if, for instance, you needed to use CDBG dollars for interim assistance activities and you don't have it in your comp plan, You have to do a substantial amendment, that's 30 days, public comment, all that time gets passed, and then whatever you were trying to fix through your interim solution is probably a much bigger problem now. And so you can avoid that by setting this up as an activity in your comp plan, put minimal funding towards it, and then move money to that activity as you need, and that's just a standard amendment. So you don't have to go through the whole public participation process. Okay, just a suggestion, yes?
Kind of off what the lady said in the front. Yesterday I had mentioned the overgrowth of brush and trees in one of our revitalization areas causing a public safety concern. Could removing that be considered eligible?
It could, but I would say what is the overgrowth is not just the public. What is the public safety concern? Is it nearing power lines, and therefore now it could be a safety issue, or is there some other?
The brush is aiding and abetting criminal activity.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess you could probably just do that under another activity. It could be a clearance activity, depending on it's not just trimming, but it's actually removing all the overgrowth and the brush and everything like that. That could be a clearance activity. Yeah. I don't think you want to use this for that. I think this is meant to be something a little more catastrophic than that. Yeah. Okay. The associated CDBG project meets that national objective. So if the CDBG project qualified, then the relocation activity qualifies. If it's voluntary, it can qualify based on the reuse of the property or the income of the assisted recipients. The activity itself does not need to meet the national objective. Okay, so you can qualify based on the income of assistance or the reuse of that property. Okay. Here's an interesting one. Loss of rental income. Okay, it's probably different than what it sounds like. Used to compensate owners for the loss of rental income due to CDBG activities. Okay, you're not just compensating owners for their vacancies. Okay, you're not just saying, oh, you have 3 vacant units, we're going to pay you. No, it's not that. Okay, this is particularly used when you're holding units pending relocation of a displaced person. So if you say, hey, we got a large family household, someone with five or more people in the unit, and there's this one property that has a 5-unit or something that can accommodate a large family, you can say, hey, we want to hold that housing. We know that we're going to relocate these people. You can pay them for holding that housing unit open. Okay? You can pay them for that. So it's not used simply to cover ongoing rental loss. The national objective is based on the objective for the original CDBG activity. Okay? So again, not paying them for their vacancies. You're identifying, we know we're going to have to relocate this household. You have a unit that fits their needs. We're going to pay you while we start that relocation process for that household. So it's not meant to be a year-long process, right? This is meant to be a month, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months that you're paying them. Not a long period of time. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's say you're doing a fairly large, road reconstruction project where CDBG is funding partially, and people are having to get relocated because the city has bought property to this road for public safety concerns. Pedestrian concerns primarily. So would it be able to, the people that live in those apartments that are getting dislocated, they can give them basically moving funds or relocation funds?
So, I mean, that's eligible cost, but I think what this is saying is you're compensating the owner of the housing unit for holding that property open for a period of time as you start to relocate those
For the
people.
person that's going to move in too, you're gonna compensate them, like, I own a house.
Okay, so it's owner occupied then.
Well, you're compensating the owner or operator of a rental housing project for holding their units because you know you're going to have XYZ households moving in. They're just holding it off the market, so they're not receiving rental income because they're holding it for you, and you're just compensating for that, holding that property open.
I asked a question yesterday about a fence, and I'm not sure if this is when it was going to be brought up, but what national objective that would be under and what type of activity?
Remind me again, I vaguely remember that.
Similar to Courtney, we did some clearance.
Okay.
And we put up a fence in order to prevent, there's some trespassing going on and drug activity, and so it's decided that this would help deter that on property that we own.
So you're basically securing the property. Yeah, I mean, to me, that's just part of an eligible cost of associated with carrying out that activity.
What would be the next, so that would be area benefit?
Could be an area benefit. You're preventing people from harming themselves or other activity happening on that property.
What matrix code would that fall under?
So if it's a clearance activity originally, it would probably fall under the clearance
So a fence would be
03
part of
or,
that clearance?
yeah, 03 matrix code, I think is that, or 4 maybe, 4, yeah. Sorry, I didn't answer that yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Technical assistance. So we've talked about technical assistance in the context of economic development, and we walk through how it could be applied to special ED, how it can stand alone on its own. This is a different technical assistance that we're talking about here. Okay, that was economic development targeted technical assistance. This is something different. Okay, it has its own matrix code, which I believe is 19C. I think it's 19C. It can be used to pay for TA to increase the capacity to do neighborhood revitalization and economic development activities. Okay, so what organization would you be funding TA to? What does that sound like? Who fits that criteria? It could be a CDBO, it could be a CDFI, okay? It could be another public agency. If you're the housing department and you have an economic development department or some other entity of the city administering a program or carrying out an activity and they're unsure of what to do, you can use this source to pay for TA to them to build their capacity to carry that out, okay? You have to determine the eligibility of the activity for which you're building capacity, so obviously it has to be tied to something that's CDBG eligible. The national objective is based on the eligible activity related to the TA. So if you're building their capacity to carry out a neighborhood revitalization strategy, it's based on, the national objective is based on carrying out that activity and whatever national objectives could apply to that, okay?